How'd the in-person meeting go last week?
Went really good. Really good. Um, oh, I didn't even count exactly how many people we had. There was over 40. I think that was there. It was a good meeting.
I was in Florida where it was 72 degrees. So just wanted you all to know that.
Hmm.
Of course, it's been warm back here. So like it wasn't that, it was only like a 20-degree difference.
Well, Cassidy called me yesterday evening, and I guess she's down in Miami.
Oh, I bet
Uh,
it's hot there.
and she said, "Oh, it was 75 degrees." I was like, "Were you calling to rub it in?" She says, "Well, but there's a little breeze. It's a little chilly." I was like, kiss my ass, Cassidy. God dang it.
Yeah.
But anyway, well, I guess we can go ahead and get started. Is Terry on?
Yeah, he got on. I
It's
don't know if
kind of
he
weird. I didn't hear him talk yet.
got that working, Terry.
Yeah, it's finally. I think it's finally going to work.
Okay.
I had gotten it on the phone, and then I went come back to the iPad. And it looks like it should be working.
Okay.
I didn't know we was going to do puzzles today.
Every day's a puzzle. Go ahead and get started, Kevin, if you want.
Hang on one second.
All right. So, Terry, you want to work this puzzle? You know that's an IH puzzle.
Well, only Kevin could work it then. That equipment is quite a puzzle, though.
It's not the puzzle to unlock 623 bushel corn yet.
It takes John Deere to do that, I guess.
Evidently.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, guys, so today we're just going to brush up on a few things. You know, go through planner setups again. This is still a same setup, same planner that we ran last 5-6 years. I said the only difference is, I mean, what I'm looking for, which I don't think I could change it yet for next year. Um, you guys have been here at our area, seen our terrain, the hills and the ditches that we deal with. Um, we are looking to find another alternative to the Martintil 2x2. Not that I not that I don't like them. I mean, I think they're fantastic as far as placing nutrients. Exactly what we want to do. They're about the most uniform placement that I think is out there for being deep. But it's kind of hard on my planter. Going through all the ditches, and we're constantly putting bushings on our parallel arms. So we are looking at something for probably 2025 to change, just to get away from them, just because it is kind of hard on our planter with our rough terrain. But
Have you
by
had
no
to change
means am I.
bearings in yours yet?
We have changed bushings um, at least twice a year, especially on our outside rows. We got to change them 3 times probably on our outside rows on the parallel links.
But the fertilizer discs, you haven't changed bearings in them?
Oh yeah, about once a year. Like when we pull our planter in here next week,
Yeah.
we just go ahead and replace all the bearings on it.
Yeah.
But we've not had any. I think we had one go out through the season that we had to replace since we've had it. So normally when we replace the bearing, that's part of the reason why we replace all the bearings there in the springtime or before we start planting. But in season, we've actually only had one bearing, I think, in 5 years to go out through the season. Um, And I think that was partly due to us. We didn't have them as tight. We were running a little bit of loose dirt, a real mellow dirt there, and they were pushing, so we loosened up the tension
Yeah.
on them. And I think we were getting a little dirt in the bearings. So, but other than that, I mean, I love them as far as the placing the nutrients where I want them at, but it's just the beating and the banging on the planter is for guys that have changed them bushings on them planters. No, it's not a 5-minute job fix. I mean, it's to replace them is about a 2-3 day job in the shop, so it's not fun in the season or to change them. So, but anyway, it's a pretty simple setup. What we got, our 2x2, our hosing, we don't run any orifices. We do them all with the friction tubes. We like that. We've had zero plugging of anything on our planter since we've done that. Got away from the orifice, and part of it is there's reasons why we run Monty's and concept stuff is because it's clean. Um, you know, like I said, there's a reason why we run them two companies' products is just because it's clean and the products work. But nothing worse than when you're wanting to plant corn is go out and clean out plugged up filters and plugged orifices, which we don't have orifices anymore, plugged hoses. But
Got a question, Kevin.
Yeah.
On my 2x2 where I run it out the back, you can visually see it all the time. And half the time, where we couldn't get the nitrogen to mix, so we were down to like 13 gallons an acre putting on. We had the correct friction tubes, but everything tried to go to one side.
Yeah.
It wouldn't go to both sides. So how do you know you've got it even, and how do you keep it even?
So what you can do is put in little valves in your lines, check tubes. I don't know. Go back
Right.
to the picture of the blue. There was blue on there, Joe. You kind of have. I'm trying to.
Yeah,
see.
you had it there, Joe. Yeah,
One on the left.
that's just a Wilger nozzle
Yeah.
body check valve base.
So he put them check valves on it like that, and then that will we got each tube coming off the main line. Then that's the main line, that black hose. And those check valves there are individual to each tube, and that's how we regulate getting the same amount out of both hoses.
Kevin, if you don't mind me stepping in here. So yeah, Kevin's got he's pretty much got two orifices on each row for both sides, it looks like. But if you're running, one friction tube or one orifice, as close as you can down at the bottom. So like I've ran it out the back on both sides, and I've just put like a 2-pound or even a 5-pound check valve on each side, and that will create enough back pressure to equal it out to both sides.
Okay.
That's
what I
done trick. Now the check valve, that's the tricky part, because like if you buy a T-jet, that dirt will get in that diaphragm and it will plug it. These Wilgers are pretty good about that. And now Kevin's got his up high, so it's definitely not going to probably get in there to cause an issue. But like a CDS John Blue with that ball in there, those seem to do good when you're getting them down, kind of down in the dirt down below. And those are, I think them are 5 or 10, and I put the 5-pound in, and that equalizes, and I'm within about 5%, from left to right, which that's good enough for me. As long as, I'm within 1% row to row, I was okay with it within 5% on, left to right of the actual row itself.
All righty.
But you got about 3 options of check valves, and that's about it. So the T-jet ones, I just would very stress, stay away from them if they're down in the dirt, because they're going to plug pretty fast and then it just won't open up.
And so what ones you recommend are called what then?
CDS John Blue. You can get them at
CDS.
Deere, but the Deere one, that Deere puts their name on them. They're more expensive, but I mean, you can get them through Daltmeyer. They're a little more spendy, but you ain't gonna have problems with them. They just work.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I'll vote for that also. I've had troubles with the T-Jet, so I think Brandon's onto something good there. The Wilger brand, who's handling that? Is all these guys handling the Wilger brand?
What's that now?
The Wilgers?
Yeah.
Who
Yeah,
all?
that's what Kevin's got. That's what them are, is there, the blue deal on top. And that blue thing is he can shut off, one side or the other. And a lot of guys use them to put different size orifices in them. So if they're going to change their rate, they can just turn that blue cap a little bit and shut one off and open up the other orifice. But Kevin's using it just to literally make sure that he's got the exact amount coming out each side, which in all reality, that's probably the absolute best way to do it, is to have orifice tubing on each side to know that you're going to get the exact amount split on that row.
With Kevin running 2 of the friction tubes or metered line down, if they're correct, he should not have a problem with the same amount both sides. If you're running 1 tube down, you get down close to the bottom, you can put a 2-foot piece of, you can put a Y and
Yeah.
a 2-foot piece of metered tube, and that will even it out.
Yeah. You could probably get by without a check valve and just run a smaller tube after, an adapter or something like that too. That would work.
Yeah, it works really good. I mean, we've had really no issues. The very first year we ran, we did run another company's humic, and just in a trial, and we did plug some of the Wilgers up right there, but it was just, like I said, it was like a half a mile strip that we ran just to try their product. And I said, if it plugs that up, if we had had orifices, we'd have had all the damn lines plugged up. So, but anyway, that's kind of how we do the metering there. Trying to think, I think I'm running 7.5 pound check valves on that, so we don't have any leaking when when the pump shuts off and we raise up and turn. So it does pretty good job there, the Wilgers. But any other questions on that? Joe, it was cold as hell when we did that day, took these pictures.
Yes, it was. Yeah, it was.
But
We'll be able to talk about.
I mean, guys, you don't have to, like I said, you don't have to run these kind of setups, Yeah, we'd like to have it in the ground, kind of as deep as we can, but some of these systems we know are expensive, a lot of guys are having success running it right out the back, by your closing wheels. But the main thing is, guys, we got to get it out early. Like I said, if we're seeing a 40 bushel difference when we pull it out of our 2x2, and coming back at even at V5 and wide dropping, you're losing that. I seen Corey Utterbacks, or is Corey on, or is that Camden?
One or the
And
other.
that's Corey. Corey, can you reinstate what you said when you pulled the out of the 2x2 and you come back and tried to wide drop your P and K? What your yield was? Was that 2 or 3 years ago you did that?
I appreciate the compliment this morning, but you're talking Camden.
That is, and I thought it was.
So I guess I should just say real quickly, and I'll let you get back. I appreciate the compliment and don't ever call me that guy's name ever.
I'm so sorry. I'm getting
I'm-
old. My eyes are getting weak.
Uh, that just, you know what? That's funny. And I know you're in a meeting. I apologize. I just give everybody a little humor this morning. The local hardware store confused my brother for me the other day because I've always been a little heavier than Corey, but that just tells you that Corey's been eating well this winter. And I'm looking out right now. He's actually in the grain bin, emptying out and hauling corn. So there you guys go. I don't have a good answer for you on the P and K and what it did on the bushel bump right now. So
Okay. I mean, Corey, I think he even said it a couple times in our meeting here that you know, something was going on with the planter, got behind or something. He thought no big deal. He could catch back up and wide drop it. But I remember him saying that, there was, a significant yield drop by even, wide dropping what he would normally put in a 2x2. So
yes,
just know, yeah.
I could tell you from what I remember being out there that, we had some salting issues just in the filters on the planter. We really struggled that for a little while to kind of get our pre-mix right whenever we put it in our tender truck. And once it got out to the machine, we had to put the products in the tank in a certain order for it not to salt out, which I think everybody and their dog that's went to the 2x2 system has probably dealt with at some point. So I do remember him talking about that and seeing some of the data on, yeah, if you don't feed the crop right from the get-go, and it's like you say, Kevin, like you can't shove everything you want up front, like the plant going to a buffet and just gorging itself. You've got to give it the right start and then come back as soon as it's calling for minerals and fertilizer with your tissue samples. Tissue sample, tissue sample, tissue sample.
Yeah.
Kevin, wouldn't you believe though, like, I mean, getting it on early, it's more of a fact of letting the fertilizer become in an available form to the plant. And it takes time to do that. So the earlier it's on, the more available it can be at the time that it needs it, because it obviously doesn't need it when the seed's in the ground, but it's more or less just breaking down that nutrition into a plant available form. Am I thinking of that correctly?
Well, especially with the P and K,
Yeah.
they're pretty immobile, and that's kind of why we say that we would love to see, that's even us with our lighter CCs, the guys up north that, are in that 25, 20 plus CCs. I mean, that's really going to be detrimental for them. And most times, they don't have the rainfall we have. It takes rainfall or water to move the nutrients. So, um, it's yeah, not that the plant is needing it. It just takes that much time, that much moisture to move it into the profile where that plant where it becomes available. Um, so moral of the story is, guys, I mean, you need to somehow, if you don't have a 2x2 on your planter, even dribbling it out on the sides behind on the closing wheels or wherever it needs to be on the planter somehow, some way, especially for the P and K. That just takes time to move to become available to the plant breakdown. And so if you don't have it, you need to be figuring out some simple ways like this. Whose planter is this?
I thought, I thought it was posed, but it may not be. I might have got it
No,
off.
this ain't Justin Campbell's, is it?
I don't remember.
This could be Justin's.
It was a year or so ago.
Yeah, even a system like this would work really well. But it's very crucial to get that, especially the P and K down as soon as possible for that plant availability.
Actually, I think there are quite a few members that have a setup something like this, which, you know, the whole point is to get it as close to the row and everything that we can get it concentrated in that band.
The only problem with this setup is what does it do to the packer wheel? Will it build up on it and then not do its job?
Well, if this is Justin's, and I don't think he's on, I do talk to Justin quite a bit through the season, and I've never heard him really complain about his packing wheel getting plugged up or gummed up.
Go down the next picture there, Joe. Is that a scraper?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now this is Poe. This is Poe's picture he sent.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's a company that makes the tube that goes behind that wheel as well. If a guy ever wanted to just go behind it, I guess, but seems like that kind of incorporates it a little bit or gets it in that slice a little bit.
Yeah, and this is Poe's planner because he sent that
Oh.
picture and then he sent it with the scraper attached. See?
Yeah, there's a lot of systems out there, but I ain't saying what's the best because everybody farms different terrain, different practices. But the moral of the story is we need to figure out a way to make sure we get the 2x2 at least on the ground or in the ground at planting somehow, some way. It'd be definitely very beneficial. I mean, we see it year in and year out that, we always say that once you get behind on tissue samples, and that's especially the P and K, you're chasing something that you never catch back up where you want to be at. So that will definitely help you on your tissue samples.
I think the biggest disconnect, or one of the biggest disconnects in even ag or anything in general, is just the perception of people believe when you put fertilizer on, it's ready to go. Like it's ready for the plant to take it. And that's not the case. That's the biggest issue that I think even all of us in MACC are fighting is we put fertility down and we think it's ready to rock and roll and get into that plant. And that's the bond that we're missing to get things in. So earlier it's in the ground, I think the more time it gets to turn into a usable form anyway. But I've never seen that. Is that a case thing where each disc is spring loaded, or I've never seen that.
That's to change. You mean for the downforce or for the closing wheels? Oh,
Yeah, is that just
the
the way the case is now today, the new style?
So
Because
you
I've
can-
never seen them two springs like that or whatever those are.
So you should be able to put them down with air force on.
Oh, I see.
You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah,
you could adjust them on the fly on your closing disc and your
I
down.
see.
So
I know I'm a deer guy for a planter, but I do think Case has probably a better row unit with the way that the gauge wells work and whatnot. But there's only 25 of you on here, so I better not say that too loud. But Joe, do we have anybody? Does MACC have anybody that does discounts with like true fertilizer systems, whether it's Ag Excel or SharePoint or anything?
No,
I don't know. We had talked to Precision Planting at one time to try and give some kind of discount, but they didn't seem to cooperate with us. And the only reason I threw this picture in here, which I know it scares you pretty bad there, Kevin, but it's green. But if you guys are running any system like this, we have available at no charge pink fluorescent balls that you put in those things and you can see it inside of the dark material. And especially if your wife is driving the planter, then you've got the pink there for her. So, and we'll send those to you at no charge. You just tell me how many you need. And we'll do that.
You can see them better than the stainless ones.
Yeah, they tell me they can.
Good.
And then this is a little video from Precision Planting on their outfit, in case you want to comment on that.
Yeah, I got a comment, but I read one.
Yeah, it's funny how everybody's trying to replicate the two concave discs in a packing wheel. That's pretty much what it comes down to.
Kevin, we don't have to work on our John Deere planters putting bearings on three times a year.
I got a comment, but I'll keep that to myself.
Well, pour it on, because if I had to work on my bushings 3 times a year, I'd just probably retire.
Well,
If anybody does want to have a cheaper option in doing that, like on a Deere planter, where if they want the concave disc with a tire, Martin's got that wheel that bolts on, so you don't have to change the entire closing wheel bracket. You can just change your wheels. They got a concave disc, and then they've got a tire that does flex on the back. I tested that for them a long time ago. I don't run it personally, but yeah, if anybody wants to do that, that's going to be about your cheapest option to do. I think they're $400 a row for the tire and the bracket, and you got to buy the disc, I guess. So, which MACC's got a thing with Martin. So, anyway.
Yeah. Okay, we ready to move on?
yeah.
All right, we got a question. Hold on.
Yeah, he's just saying those fast tracks. I think if we had a guy that ran them around here, and if you're in loamy, sandy stuff, they work really good. I had a neighbor that he plants a lot of heavy clay, and he struggled with them in there. But I think that was just the concept of the tire and those concave discs. But I do think they make a good design. Fast Track does.
Yeah.
They're expensive.
All right, so we got Travis. You want to come on and comment about these? You sent me the other day.
Yeah, these are our soybean tissue samples for last year. I don't know. We haven't run over a lot of soybeans, I guess, this year, but this is what we had. This is the one we had our best yield off of all the ones we took. It was at 70,000 population, and I had a 60 and a 50 right beside it, and there was real no yield difference in any of those, maybe a bushel between them all. This has just happened to be where I took the samples that were in the 70s. I tested actually all the way down to 40 this year, and part of it got flooded out, but the beans were like kochia weeds out there. They were just huge, and they were about knee high, and the little bit we did cut out of them, they didn't really show any difference in yield, which makes my day. I mean, and you know, we're always looking to get shorter beans just because of the lodging and then the white mold that comes with it and just takes everything away. So, I mean, if you go down, like our program is on slide 15 there, Joe, for what we did in the 2023 boxes. We're gonna change. Craig is here on Monday, and we changed a bunch of things for this coming year to try to get more potassium into the plant and spread out our carbon applications and our sugar applications. And we added in. I think we're gonna. You know, we struggle with high K base saturations. I think our average is 9. And I mean, it's kind of a weird thing to say we struggle with it, but I do think it's tying more up than getting into the plant. For us anyways. So we're going to run more fulvic acid. And basically every pass, no matter if it's, you know, on the planter, foliar, you know, whatever we're doing, as long as we're not having any chemical in there to heat it up and, you know, burn everything. But we had success with foliar K last year. We ran 4 gallons and we kept our K levels above a 2.2, which is a win for us because a lot of times we'll get into that R3 stage and everything will just tank. So we're trying to get ahead of that. We're gonna do a gallon earlier where it says the soybean Y drop, where it's like that V3, V4 stage. We're gonna do a foliar feed of S17 and to keep the beans short. And we could see when we did that last year too, and we could see that we kept our nodes tighter. And then after about 2 weeks, you could see the nodes grow up again. And then when we did it again, they shortened back up. So it helped us a lot. I mean, we probably kept combine our best beans that were the shortest beans we've probably ever had on average, which is really nice for us. A lot of times we get these, chest high beans and they just suck and they're no fun combining, and we've all had that as an issue. But so we're gonna do foliar K or a little earlier, and then our like V2 stage with a fungicide. We're gonna do a gallon of sulfur and I think 3 gallons of potassium to see if we can get our potassium levels above a 3. We did a little bit last year, but it was very short-lived. I mean, all foliar stuff is, but until we mine some of the potassium out or move it along in the soil from liming and moving our magnesium numbers around, that's just kind of on the road we're going to have to take until we get there. I mean, in places I think we probably do a better job than other places, but I can't tissue sample 100 samples every week and figure out exactly where everything is supposed to be. At least not at the moment. I don't know exactly what else. I mean, we're gonna run 2 or 3 passes of fungicides depending on the year and how Mother Nature lets us actually get out there and actually do it. This last year we had just too much rain. Our ground was just too wet to start with, and then we had a wetter June, so it just did not let us get what we wanted. Another pass in there that we were planning on doing. So I mean, if this in a perfect world, if I get this all done, I'll be happy. I'll be tired, but I'll be happy. So
Travis,
yeah.
your that 100 pounds of gypsum, have you
Yep.
done like a tissue sample of your calcium before it and after it? And then have you done different rates of that? Are you feeling the 100 pounds as more of a balancing, or do you really think you're getting your calcium to move up in your tissue because of the 100 pounds?
On our corn, I haven't done this on our soybeans yet, but on our corn, we had, I think it was, I'm just gonna look. Give me 1 second. I got it all in my
We're gonna kind of experience some gypsum because we're in an area where pH is always lower, so everybody's running pill lime or egg lime, and I got some really good pHs, but I want to keep bumping calcium. So I found some gypsum. It's hard to get here, to be honest, sounds
Really?
crazy. But
and you're a lot closer than we are because we get it out of Fort Dodge, out of calcium products.
yeah,
And because we're going to run it pelletized, so we can spread it over the top,
Yep.
or strip tiller, run it through that way. Because like we could probably get like powder gypsum closer, but I can't spread it, and I'm not going to go out and buy something just to do that.
you know what ballpark of what you've paid per ton?
We paid $350 last year.
That's about it. So I think it's 310 here is where I could get it.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Yeah, and then like this last fall, we bought lime and it was $205 a ton.
yeah,
Yeah. I'm hoping that the gypsum's in that 250 range
yeah,
again, or 275. I mean, that's just kind of, they're supposed to give me a price, but they haven't. On our corn last year, we were able to get 17% more calcium into the plant. from our, and that was, beginning to end
Did you get over 1%?
on our beans or on
No,
our
on the
corn.
corn.
No, we got up to about like 0.65, I think it was.
Oh,
0.7
okay.
was our high.
Okay.
But like years previous, we were struggling to be 0.4.
Oh,
You know?
okay. So you do think it's added quite a bit then?
Yeah, I do. I tested 200 and 300 pounds last year. We saw like a 4 to 5 bushel gain on 200 pounds, and 300 pounds. I didn't really see much difference. I do think just within our, moisture and timing and, and all that, I don't think we get it all broken down in 1 year. I just,
No, no. And I was
I-
probably going to broadcast this. So I was going to try 500 pounds, do something crazy.
yeah.
Kevin, you think there's be something else, because he's been running all this other stuff, humic, sugar. Do you think that gypsum is really pertaining to that calcium increase, or could it be something else that he's done to get that number up?
Well, I'm not saying that he's not getting. Yeah, he's getting some from the gypsum, but
Yeah,
I think it's a lot to do with running the sugar and humics and just
yeah,
freeing up what he's got available.
yeah.
By no means is he hurting himself? I mean,
No.
I like that idea of running gypsum to get more out there, but I'm just from the guys that I've seen tissue samples over the years that's making increases on calcium, that have not run gypsum or have not changed their normal patterns of liming. What I'm saying, they've always limed before, but the sugar to humics, and when I say humics, I throw in fulvics too. When I say
Yeah.
that, I throw that in the same category. But I think the soil is getting primed, is starting to do what it's supposed to be doing. But the gypsum itself is a supplement that, just like a vitamin band-aid to help.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I think it's a combination.
Yeah.
Hey, Brandon,
Yeah.
I had it priced to put on, they were gonna haul it, deliver it, and spread it for $70 a ton.
Hot damn.
Gypsum. And
Yeah,
and
it's different here because I suppose trucking's over half of it, unfortunately.
well, but I mean that's coming from almost 2.5, 3 hours away.
Really. Okay, interesting.
And so
Yeah,
I don't know how
all the
much.
lime products here get super high because they know we need it, right? It's a demand thing. But the best lime I've ever gotten is out of Superior, and we had a farm we picked up 3 years ago. pH was 5.8. We only put 1,500 pounds on, and we took it all the way up to a 6.7 1 year. It was pretty remarkable, but it was running out the back. There's water running out of the spreader. The guy spreading it didn't have a fun time, but I had a fun time reading my soil samples after they put it on the next year. So, but it's that still wasn't cheap. I think that cost, gosh, I think that was probably $65 an acre. I mean, so it wasn't crazy. I mean, that's just funny how, you think it's a lot, but when we raised that pH, we took that yield up about 60 bushel that next year, just by making some change. The first year was just shit because we didn't have a tissue sample when we got it right in April, when we just knew we were going to farm it. So you want to know the power of pH, there you go. That's a pretty good test there. But yeah, that's cheap. I'm pretty sure I was quoted 314 a ton for the gypsum. So, and it had to come, I think they're hauling it into this location, and the location's about an hour and a half away from here. So anyway, it's not cheap.
No, ours is 5.5 hours away. So,
Yeah.
no matter what we do, everything's a long ways away, but
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you.
yeah, but I don't know. I mean, it is what it is. I'm like, at least we're doing it. I mean, nobody around here does any of that kind of stuff. There are guys that do water filtration plant lime, but that stuff's crap. And gypsum, it comes in and we unload it and they get another load the next day or whenever we need it. So it works out
Yeah.
well. I mean, I wish we had a better source or something cheaper, but
Strip tilled
but it is strip tilled in. So it's like I'm gonna do soil sampling either this spring or I'm gonna do some during the summer. I don't know if it's on this, but to see like how much calcium that we've raised from our strips and compared to our last
Yeah.
time we soil sampled, just to see that, like, you know, what kind of, you know, increase in efficiency we're getting in by having it in the strip, because we're not low on calcium by you know any means, but we're not, you know, we're 15 to 2,000 parts per million. You know, in our eyes, that's not low, but in what we're probably needing is at least double or triple that.
Yeah.
You know, to actually get that into the plant to where it's moving everything the way it should be doing. I do think we get a lot of help from raising our boron levels up, you know, and I think that's helped us out some, you know, just that, you know, how they tie together and moving into the plant. You know, we raised our boron levels in our corn plants a lot higher than we ever have this year by doing more at the planter and some foliar applications. And it's, you know, we're all it's pointing in the right direction that we're doing. You know, it's not just dumb luck anymore. It's actually, you know, maybe something we've done to increase our fertility in the plants and everything. And, you know, and it'll all probably change going into 2025 again, but, you
Yeah.
know, well, we'll keep moving forward and see what these tissue samples say. I mean, you just never know. I mean, the years are changing, you know, the years are all different, moisture, you know, sunlight, everything. But
It's proof that Kevin's, you know, process and program is doing what it needs to do.
yeah. Oh yeah,
Well, you know,
definitely.
Travis, it'd also be interesting through your soil testing over time to see what that sulfur part is doing for your high mag numbers also,
Mhm.
besides just the calcium numbers.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really hoping we're going to start bringing those down, because that is one thing you know, it's another thing we struggle with, is that just it's high mag content, no matter if it's corn or beans. And we would never have guessed it in how light and mellow our soil is, but apparently when you get in there, it's a lot tighter than we think it is. So, I mean, I don't know, something to work towards, but like that slide you got above there on 14 there, Joe, is something, and it's not, it doesn't, I don't know really what it says or means quite yet, but it's something that I've been using. So I took all Kevin's tissue samples from his 425, put him in a Excel spreadsheet and compared it to our 300 tissue
Yeah.
sample or 310 or whatever it was. And on every line there, and so I can match the GDUs as to ours, of what he had more or less into the plant than we did. And I did this to our own comparison on our high to our low, and I didn't really know at the time. I'm like, I got it done, and I'm like, oh, what the hell does this all mean? And, you know, and so I sent it off to Craig, told me, you tell me what you think. And he's like, well, I don't know, and he can explain more to it, you know, on that. But what it shows, like it showed to me, is that the amount of fertility that he's getting and Kevin's getting into his plants, even compared to our highest yield that we've ever had. And it shows us like what we actually have to work on. It showed us on our own just a comparison of what we needed to get into the plant. And, you know, one of the more interesting was, and it shows how less magnesium that he's getting than we are. And probably, and that goes down to all the other numbers of what you're able to get more into the plant with. And
This is pretty neat, because, you know, the lower numbers are the ones that typically a grower addresses the most, you know, nitrogen, phos, potassium. Then the ones that aren't addressed as much, you know, your micros, but like that calcium one. And then seeing that minus 37 on the magnesium. I mean, it all kind of pertains to really exactly what has been preached for quite some time, really.
You know,
Mhm.
Brandon, one interesting thing on this is Kevin's numbers are much higher in most cases, but when you look down at the ratios at Travis's 310 yield at 300, whatever that was, the ratios aren't off all that much compared to
Yeah.
what Kevin's ratios were.
Which would be a reason why he raised 310. I mean, it's still a big number, but in all
Mhm.
reality, you can still be balanced down below. You just need more, which
Yeah.
makes sense, more nutrients, more mass, more grain, more heavy grain, but then, you kind of run into what was the population of this?
This would have been like 36.5.
Yeah, so
37.
Kevin's at another 13,000 plants and still, these numbers were, wherever they were. So the biomass thing would be the only kicker in this that would kind of goof
Mhm.
it up. I mean, wouldn't you agree, Craig? I mean, how do you correlate those two, I guess, as far as the plants that are out there?
Well, trying to think how I'm going to say this. The higher you bump population to get yield, we do know that it takes higher tissue samples.
Right.
So like if you're at 30,000 and you have them numbers, um, say your numbers, Travis, and you go to 40,000 and you have the same numbers, there probably will not be much yield difference between the 30,000 and the 40,000.
Really?
And the reason, huh?
You think, because I mean, if you keep this tissue samples the same on that plant, but you have 10 more thousand plants out there, if
No,
the tissue samples are the same, you just got 10, sorry, go ahead.
the reason I say that we've seen this on our farm, um, lots and lots of times. The higher the population, the more we have to go up because normally the stalks are not as big in
Oh, I
diameter.
see what you're saying now. Yeah.
So your volume through the plant
Yeah.
is not near as much as what you
Yeah.
have on a lower population, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So yeah, we've done this where where we've ran the same amount of fertility and all this that we did on 30,000, and we bumped it up to 36 and 38,000, and we had the same numbers. But there's more stress that's going in. You got more heat stress.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other things. So that's what we've said. The higher population, and which makes it so tough that the numbers need now let me reiterate this. Now we have a cool summer where we don't have a lot of environmental stress. Then you don't have to get by as much with the numbers, but we see that when we start bumping up higher pops, and that's why this was the first time ever on our farm that our higher population on our yield contest was better than the lower stuff. Is just we had the cloudy days, we didn't have the heat, the Canadian smoke. And so I think that's the only reason. Well, that and the different hybrids, we talked about that a little bit yesterday. But do I think honestly that this was the best job I ever did farming? No. I think it was kind of a combination of the weather, the cloudy weather. I mean, not saying the cloud. Yeah, I am saying the cloudy. The temperatures were down for most of the year, and I believe it was the hybrids selection. But I do know for us, the higher population we go, we have got to have higher nutrient levels in the plant to achieve higher yields.
Yeah.
If just because of that, we don't have the stalk mass. We got a tall stalk, but the problem is the diameter or the circumference of the stalks, was from that 48,000 to our normal 34,000. It was probably a third smaller what we had on that 48,000.
Well, Kevin, automatically you got less roots because of crowding. So don't you think, it's not going to be able to pull in the nutrients with the less roots, don't you think?
Well,
That's
but your
some
tissue
retire-
samples are, your tissue samples should be showing that.
Yeah.
Right. That's what,
So I mean, you have it in the plant, but it goes back to what we were talking about, the guys that was on the first year, that's getting into these tissue samples, how to learn quicker. I know it's a pain in the ass, but go out and take a tape measure and measure the circumference of the stalks that you do and compare that year in and year out. I mean, just because you have lower numbers, you got high calcium and you got a stalk that's just throwing a number out, an inch diameter, inch and a half diameter, to a stalk that's 3/4 of an inch, it don't have to have as much because it's just got twice or three times the plant biomass is what the other stuff does. So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that goes in on these tissue samples that the guys that's doing the tissue samples, they can't measure. They can't measure the size of that stalk. They can't measure, they're just taking leaves and grinding them up and saying, here's the percentage of it. But they have no idea if that's coming off of you guys could do this at home. We go out there, and especially guys like Terry that's got a John Deere planter that's got a lot of short little runts coming up. Sorry, Terry, I had to throw that in. But take a tissue sample of a plant that's been behind 2 or 3 days coming out, and the tissue sample will probably be pretty close. But then when you go looking at the stalk is less than half the size of the first emerging. So there is a lot of analog or whatever the hell that word is that goes in that the tissue sample itself cannot take in consideration. So that's why we said for some of the guys that just starting out, maybe get your own chart of seeing how big the plants are, and then you can kind of compare year after year, the size difference and correlate that back to your tissue samples, because it is a big difference.
That's neat, Travis. That's pretty neat. The percentage deal there. That was cool to see.
Well, it's been kind of helpful, just to say, well, another thing to, another set of data you could put in there to say, well, yeah, you do need more phosphorus or potassium or calcium, and just half-ass something when you go and do it, because it's showing you really need a lot more. And I agree with you, Kevin, like wholeheartedly on the diameter. That's just something I'll have to think about how I'm going to do it and when do you start, and because just getting the mass flow into everything makes a big difference. And populations, like we haven't changed populations on any of our variable rates for, I don't know, probably 3 or 4 years. We've tried all the way up to 40, and all they did was just have these little spindly little sticks out there, and we just didn't have the nutrition. I think eventually we may get there. I may gain yield off of it, but if we don't get an 8 to 10 bushel gap, in like a 1,500 pop difference, I don't think it's really where I think I'd be better off money spent somewhere else. And I don't know. That's just where we're going.
Especially with these new hybrids that's coming out.
Yeah.
These
I
hybrids.
think the 12 to 13, bushel per that's achievable. I mean, I think you can put 32, 33 down and grow 350, 370 on it if you have the right nutrition. Wouldn't you agree, Kevin?
And it'd be easier to manage.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this will be the first year I am actually going to throw. I'm going to try a contest plot at about 26,000 this year.
damn, you're trying to give me a chance, aren't you?
Do what?
You're trying to give me a chance, aren't you?
Well, Well, I'd say I'd let Sean do it, but Sean kicks your ass too.
Yeah, Sean with a big KK after it. Get it?
Denny, if
But
that, if the, you know, the second year will hold on, you know, that low of a population, that's going to be interesting to see that.
well, so this is kind of what I'm thinking. There's actually a couple reasons I want to do that. You know, everybody's heard about the big yield with the suckers on it. So we're going to see if we can induce the suckers and keep the suckers all the way through. And lo and behold, see if we get an ear on them. But I'm more after, I think it's going to be way easier to keep the double ear on the stalk than what it would be to keep the sucker ears. So, um, so we're actually going to go down and plant a plot on our best ground, back to population off, and then we can kind of start dissecting if we can keep that second ear. Maybe we can start dissecting nutrient wise, or you know, or is it a sunlight thing or whatever, why we cannot keep as a whole. I'm talking not just me, but I'm talking the whole group, why we can't keep that second ear at a little higher population. So that's kind of a test that we're going to do, and I figured that would be a good one to be on some of our best dirt.
You gonna
To
try
try.
and tissue sample both of them then, like a fire pop, and then do them both in the same spot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kevin, you might also mention this might be a good time to do it. That we want, you know, some cooperation throughout the members on some testing, and I think this is probably one of the things that needs to be in there as a population test
Yeah.
for everybody.
Yeah.
to do.
So you know, we want at least 10 on irrigated, 10 non-irrigated, but the more the merrier that we can get. We're going to throw several different test things out we want to test, but we do want tissue samples on them to see, so we can compare with everybody else's, what everybody else is seeing, that's in this. And if it is hard to get across your acres, we do want them done. You know, I'm not saying you have to do it exactly at, you know, 945 GDUs that make an application, because I know how farming is, but we don't want to, you know, if you think you'll have a problem doing that, we don't want you to sign up if you're going to be 200, 250 GDUs off of these populations, because we're going to see how the same management of the exact same stuff that we apply, or even or on anything, reacts across basically the world or United States or whoever's all in this, just to get a learning curve for everybody to see, well, we tried this, and well, everybody did the same exact thing on a strip. And then we can say, well, how's come Travis's, you know, his phosphorus numbers stayed up doing this and everybody else has dropped. Then we can go back and dive into, you know, see exactly what Travis has done over these, you know, the last 2 or 3 years, and see why he's getting a response out of it and where we did. So that's kind of why, you know, a lot of the data that we've been getting has been, you know, that I've been getting is 100% based off of our farm. And, you know, Brandon kind of brought this up to me a couple months ago about, or a month ago about, you know, why I don't see a lot of stuff that makes a difference on our farm is, you know, our biology. So if we can broaden that out a little bit, and maybe guys will see a response where we don't, so we can kind of make better suggestions for everybody, I guess, in the growing season.
Hey,
So,
Kevin,
yeah.
it's going to be exciting to have these across the different geographies. But if you could go back, if you would, on the stalk diameter, I remember several years ago when you were talking about that, when you would cut a stalk, you would talk about the filter, the brown pith, that
Mhm.
you would see sometimes in an unhealthy plant. If you remember that, talk
Yeah.
about that a little bit.
I mean, so when we cut the stalk apart, we're not just looking at the girth of the stalk or the nodes. We're actually going down and looking at that pith because, the pith is what, right or wrong, if I'm right or wrong, but I call that the filter for the plant. So guys, now this, I don't want to alarm you guys, but the guys that run I got a mouse in my shop. I just heard the damn thing. Um, but the guys that have been running, the potash, 1034O, stuff like that, we're seeing that their pith is a dark brown, a gray, or whatever, and almost a black color. And so, if that filter is what I call a filter, if that thing is black, that is restricting your nutrient flow. So that's why it's so important to be running good products, 829.2, a 924.3, the stuff that's pretty clean, to help on that. That's why we run the liquid, the 42012 instead of the potash. Another reason, it's a cleaner product, less salt. So we don't plug that filter up throughout the season because that is huge. I mean, anytime you pull a stalk out, you should be cutting down to that and see what that pith looks like because that's probably going to give you a telltale of what your yield potential is going to be. If it's completely on that tip, completely plugged up, brown, black looking, totally discolored from the rest of the stalk, you probably got other issues going on. That is, really hate to say it, in season. I don't know how to clean it up in season. I don't know if you can. Um, but other than, a slow process of using good stuff, good products and getting rid of the high salts, any of the heavy metals, that's the problem with 1034O. You sent off analysis for the guys that's using 1034O, you'll probably have a heart attack when you see all the heavy metals in it. That filter tries to filter all that stuff out. That pith does. So that's something to think about on. I know it's, even though it's sometimes cheaper, normally it is cheaper, but there's a reason why it's cheaper because it's the off-fall of all the other shit that makes fertilizer, that goes into that 1034O. So something to think about. Craig, you want to add anything to that or?
Well, I remember you were showing pictures where you slit the stalk, from up to down, and you were showing one picture where there was a little bit of discoloration down at the ground level, just above the soil level is where it was starting to get discolored. I'm just wondering, like in bad situations, does that discoloration continue to move up into that pith?
Oh, 100,
And the second,
100%. Yeah, it
yeah.
definitely does keep moving.
And I was
and
wondering if you took it and you just cut it off and looked straight down at it, if it would show you how much of that pith is actually discolored, like is it a size of a dime or is it, what I'm trying to say, how much of it is
yeah.
going at
Well,
that
we've
view?
seen them all the way up to the first node black, on certain farms, neighbors there, and most of the time, if you do it like if you go in there like an R2 R3, you can actually see a pretty big visual difference in the ear size on that already. So
When you
where it's
think
all
about it, when you look at it, that middle part, that's the xylem, right? That's what's sucking stuff up into the plant. And if it's white on the outside and not as dark, that's the phloem coming back down. But having that xylem part plugged up, that's bad
yeah.
news. That's a bad day, bad year.
And then that's where you're gonna start seeing standing issues, because it moves up to the nodes.
Yep.
And that's where you get down corn. So a lot of stuff you can learn, just cutting a plant in half and looking at
Oh,
it.
yeah. I think sometimes we forget about that part of it, what you were doing. When you
Yeah,
when you dissect a stock.
and so for you guys that are having some nutrient issues, maybe that's what you need to look at. First thing you do, go down there and cut that and see what's going on. If that filter's plugged, well, you're probably not going to get much to pass through that plant up through your xylem. So that could be a real issue for you.
And it may, I don't know, kind of tell you why, if we're putting out gallons of boron or zinc and we can't get it into the plant, maybe that's part of it. It could be a nutrient imbalance also.
Yeah,
That's
there's
fine to figure that out.
pictures of them. I mean, them nodes there, that's where that, you'll start seeing. You definitely don't want to see that, well, I call it styrofoam in them nodes. Once you start seeing that, that becomes your first field you want to start harvesting, because you're going to have issues there of the stalk breaking off there. I mean, we try to probably cut, I bet through the year we probably cut 100 stalks all over the place, just to see what's going on. And we can see a lot of if we're going to have any standing issues, just by cutting the stalks there and looking. Everybody should be doing that on their farm.
While you all were talking, it took me a while to find those pictures, but there they are. Oh, by the way, Terry,
Mm-hmm.
I remember having this picture from you. Don't you have this cob mounted on your wall somewhere?
Oh yeah, it's hanging here. It's 2 feet long and 22 around, and I
Yep.
just had to keep that one.
I hear you.
Yeah, did you get Ethan's stuff loaded or not? So we can stay on that one filling this morning.
Hold on.
Ethan, are you on?
Yep, I'm on.
Okay, I wanted, Joe's probably trying to get it up here. Like you talk about your closing system a little bit, and then another thing, while you wasn't on here, there was some discussion about the gypsum that you've been applying, and if you could tell any difference you've seen in when you started adding that. So you could tell about your closing system here. You don't have to brag on the new John Deere tractor, but it does look.
This for us, it was just something to get into the 2x2, and it was, for 24 rows, it was $10,000. So it's just pretty cheap to start out with. We have a 12-row planter also that we put the furrow force on in the conceal. And I mean, we like the closing system on the 12-row better, the furrow force, honestly. I mean, last year in the same field, this closing system next to the furrow force probably came up a day quicker on the emergent side. The system we have on the 24-row, like I said, is more reasonable priced, but I think honestly, we're gonna swap this out and put furrow force this winter on the 24-row and the conceal. But, just for somebody looking to get into 2x2, this was a, kind of a simpler way to do it, just for us to get started.
Ethan, the video quality is shit. So I'm seeing, is it the closer is what's on there?
Yeah, that's what we have. Yeah.
So you didn't have any problems with anything sticking to that closing wheel?
No, not at all that way. I mean, you get just a tiny bit of splatter. I mean, you just do. But no, as far as the sticking, those are, they advertise that they're the HMW poly or whatever. No, and they do not stick. That's fact.
Okay. But you
So,
said you're
Ethan-
adding the precision closing system on all of it?
What's that?
You're adding the precision closing system on the planter, you said?
Yeah, we are.
Okay.
So then with that, then, you know, that closing system isn't gonna work with the fertilizer part, so then we're gonna go with the conceal to, you know, do the 2x2.
Yeah,
I mean, those are pretty expensive parts, but we feel, you know, we saw it on the 12 row, so we're gonna bite the bullet and do it on our big planter too.
the conceal part.
Yeah, and the furrow force, yeah.
Yeah, we've ran starter, on a planter since we've started farming in the early 90s. So we've tried probably, I don't know, 8 different things. And I'm not a big precision planting fan, but the conceal, we ran that on one side this last year, and then the Martin, like Kevin's got on the other side, because we've had the dual Martins, but we've had a lot of issues with them with plugging and whatnot. So the conceal thing worked great. I think they've got a pretty maintenance free, no issue. You're not going to get it 2 inches deep, but you're going to get it
Right.
1.5 inches in the ground, which, I don't think a 1/2 inch is going to make or break anything, but it works damn good. I didn't have any problems with it.
Yeah.
And
No,
I
the
feel
only
the
thing
gauge
with
well
the-
did its job and did a nice job.
Sure. The only thing with the conceal though is if you get in any kind of wet spot, it just plugs your planter up just like that.
Yeah, sand don't get very muddy.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
by another token here, we had the meeting there, the in-person meeting. Some of the guys, mainly maybe down here in Kentucky and all, they're not real happy with the conceal. So Kevin, you remember, was that bearings or was that getting it into the ground?
The rocks, they said something about
Oh,
the
yeah.
rocks.
Oh, well, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, but I don't care what you put on. If you have rocks, you're gonna have problems. So,
Right.
yeah.
So Brandon, maybe I missed it, but what are you using for a closing system then, Brandon?
I've got a new planter showing up here in a month, and I've got twisters,
Okay,
the Yetter twister, because they come factory, and I drag a chain, and I've actually gonna put the Yield 360 chains on, and that's another company that.
sure.
Anyway, I think they've got a good way with it not jumping, with that extension on a spike closing wheel.
Yeah,
I wanted to run fast tracks, and get that K style closing, but we do actually, believe it or not, have 450 acres of sub irrigated bottom ground that's pretty mellow, and it does get sticky. So I'm gonna stick with those Yetters because I've had really good luck with them. And we did do a test across 4 different closing systems. I actually had 2 prototypes of Martins. I had the Yetter with the chain. I had the Yetters without the chain. I had rubber tire. And then I ran, the 2 Martins where they're concave with the tire. And believe it or not, the Yetter twister with the chain was that come up the quickest. It was hard to pertain it to yield. We kind of laid ears out on the ground. And the 2 Martin concave tire concept and the Yetter twister with the chain were all pretty much the same. There was no precision thing on there or anything like that because I don't think I could get myself to spend 28 grand on a planter to put them on. But I just think in different kinds of soils, those are going to shine. But where we're sand, as long as we can just get a little bit of a press but break up and then drag it smooth, it's going to be good, so we have a little bit more leeway versus a lot of others on the closing side. So anyway, that's what I'm running, and then it's going to get new conceal on both sides is what we're going to run for the fertilizer.
Yep.
Do you have the exact rate on that planter, or what are you running for a pump?
Just a surefire.
Oh, you got the Surefire on it. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Is that what you're talking about, Brandon?
Yeah, no, the Martin one's a little different, but yeah, the drag chain. I don't think that's a field 3 or a yield 361, but it's similar to that. It's a twisted chain, just like that. The The ones I ran before, and Yetter and Martins are the same way. The issue is they like to jump up, and hit the closing wheel or something. So what I did is I took I'd say a 4-inch piece of like seed tube hose, and I put that up on where the chain would connect to that bracket, and then put a bolt through it so it couldn't slide down, so that chain couldn't come all the way up. And that fixed that issue pretty good. But the Yield 360 ones, they bolt to the closing wheel bolt bearing area, and then they have an extension that gets them pushed back further, and they really can't jump up on there. That's kind of what they're designed to do. They're a little bit more heavier, robust kind of chain over like the Yetter or the Martin, I guess. So anyway, but yeah, same concept there.
Okay, got you.
And I think if a guy's not running a spike, I really don't care for the copperheads. I kind of like the Yetters because they do kind of twist a little bit, so it doesn't leave that hole, and that chain kind of fills them in to kind of level all that out. I mean, if in all reality, if we could take the seed and somehow put it 2.5 inches down exactly without disturbing the top of the soil, that would be obviously the ideal situation. So that's where the chain just kind of smooths it out and makes it even anyway. I've just seen too many times where we did run the chain on a couple rows that you had, spikes coming up at different angles, and I just don't like seeing it. More of a peace of mind thing.
Okay.
Brandon, sounds like you just need to get your red planter.
Yeah, yada yada. It might happen. The only John Deere equipment we have left out here is a new planter coming and our tractor. Everything else is a different color now. So I'm not going to say that it won't be a red one the next time. So anyway,
You'll go back if you go red.
I do love the brush meter. I think the Exactamerge is a hell of a meter, but I will say the gauge wheel, the actual row unit itself, the main, skeleton of it, I think Case has got a lot better row unit. That's just my opinion. So whether it pertains to yield, I don't know, but Kevin's raising pretty good corn with a Case planter, so I can't argue it.
Well, I've had them both. They're both good planters. I mean, everybody's got their preferences, but anyway, anything else on that, guys?
Whether it's red, green, it's all up to the operator.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Ethan, you might, while we're still on sort of fertility, you might say something about, I know you've been a gypsum user with your strips. Can you talk about what the gypsum's helped you or hurt you, whatever you think here?
So we got really high MACC, kind of like everybody on a soil test, our base saturations can be, 18 to 25, in that neighborhood. And we've been getting them knocked down slowly. I mean, yeah, we like the Calsol, or gypsum. We've been running 200 to 300 pounds every year. Just kind of depends on how much you want to spend, but it's been kind of slowly knocking our MACC down. And then it also helps, on a tissue sample, we can, at least when you start out pulling tissue samples, V5, V6 corn, I've gotten my tissue samples up way over a 1, and I think that's just, because we're getting a little bit more calcium in. So.
Kevin, that kind of brings a point. So on the magnesium side, on my sand, my magnesium like part per million numbers are pretty low, but I can still get like a 0.18, 0.16. And, I've never really seen my magnesium get as low as yours. There's got to be something else doing that, because I'm already a really low mag to begin with. Do you think there's something else that you're doing that's kind of pulling that down? It'd be crazy to think that mine would be higher than yours in a tissue sample. You know what I mean? Now my base saturate. What's your base saturations are like 10-ish, or are they lower than that?
No, they're lower. They're probably 8.
Oh,
6
well,
to 8.
mine still pushes 15-ish, 14, 13 to 15 on a base. So that's probably, which is crazy, I guess. I don't quite get that part of it with my I got some part per millions that are, geez, they're low. They're way down below 100. So anyway.
Yeah,
Would that have anything
I
to
mean,
do
it
with
would
it?
probably just have to be on the base saturation, I'm guessing. Why we're still that much lower than what you are on the mag.
Yeah.
Other than that, really wouldn't. Just trying to think of the soil type. You know, sand is the mag more available? I don't know on that.
Yeah. Yeah, we did a lot of years of playing it. You know, there's a lot of K-Mag put on this ground. And obviously it hasn't been put on for 4 years, but yeah, I don't know. That's interesting. It's always been told to put it on to tighten the soil up with where we're at, but obviously the K-Mag wasn't doing shit to begin. The yield's falling off, so I don't know. I honestly, I think if we just keep putting calcium to it, and I'm not going to sit here and say that, you know, the sand guys shouldn't see their calciums up in the lower 80s. You know, I think that's only going to help, in my opinion, because it just seems where that's always higher. Like I've said before on here, it's where the pHs are higher, the calciums are higher, and everything. And I mean, I'm talking on sugar sand is where the yield really, really blows through the doors. So,
Well, speaking of that, while we're on the sand, so another reason why I think that guys, no matter what you farm, sand or loam or heavy clay, I still want to see that because now you're running humics. I would much rather use the humics to do the binding
yeah,
of the nutrients than having mag in the soil. You know what I mean? I mean,
yeah,
I understand guys are saying they want mag in there. You know, it makes the ground a little bit tighter, but but instead, but you're giving up the availability of other nutrients. We know that the humics, you know, we use it as a stabilizer for evaporation or even flooding. So if it can hold on that and release yet, I just don't know why it would not do the same thing for sand.
yeah. There's plenty of
So
mag there, plenty of
yeah,
mag there to begin with, you know, on a total acid test. So, yeah, that makes sense.
so
So, Kevin,
so
you didn't use dry fertilizer. Would that play a role in there?
I say it again, Joe.
All the years that you have not applied dry fertilizer, you've just been liquid program. Would you think that relates to that, Meg?
I think it all boils down to the salt loads. Yeah, I mean, um, you know, I'm not saying that our soils are perfect by any means, but I think they're about as as far as I'm concerned, as healthy as what they can be. And that's one thing I have to give the reason that it is because we just not use dry fertilizer. And the last 15, almost 20 years now, we've been running humics. Granted, we weren't running near what we were running the last, 7, 8 years, but we don't have a lot of the stuff that inhibits, I should say, biology, to do the work for us. I think that's why we are successful. It really don't matter if it's a wet year or a dry year. Why we can get the nutrients that we want in the plant a little bit easier than some of the other guys can. Is just because there's not a whole lot of inhibitors out there in our soil anymore to antagonize nutrient uptake. And it does, revert back to, 30 plus years without dry fertilizer. But so are we ready to jump to another one or another topic?
Yeah,
Yeah.
roll on.
Okay. So this GDU calculation, I said we kind of hit on a little bit, I think the first session that we had, but I honestly think we need to change this. I think it needs to go from 86 degrees to 90 degrees. Just what we're seeing on our crops. And hold out. Let me explain this, why I say that. You know, why would it not keep growing if your plant is healthy and feeling good and have all the nutrition? Why would it stop at 86 degrees? I mean, our corn is basically maturing faster than what the regular corn plant GDUs say. On the booklets of 3,000 GDUs to black layer. As far as accumulating GDUs, we're at, and that's black layering at 33-34%. What the books normally, most seed companies will say, well, our corn is black layering on the GDUs. If you accumulate to what they say, our corn is black layering at probably, if you got a 3,000 GDU, we're probably at under 2,900 or right around 2,900. So there can only be one other thing, is that corn plant is still growing. So I think it needs to be changed to 90 on that, as far as the GDUs there, the maximum. And maybe higher,
are
but
you calculating your own and doing all that, or what are you using? Because that's going to be a big key with everybody in this group using the same,
so how I do it, because it's honestly the way it's not. I mean, to me, especially at emergence, it's not an accurate planting,
yeah,
because for guys that has to plant when the ground is cold and you have big temperature swings. So just because the atmosphere temperature goes up to, let's say 65 degrees during the day, but
Yeah.
nighttime it gets down below freezing. Well, that ground is not going to warm up right away, especially if it's cloudy.
yeah,
So even though they're saying you're accumulating GDUs, you technically are not, because your ground's not that warm. So to make it easy for everybody, we always go by emergence. So once the corn emergence,
Yep.
that's when we start calculating GDUs. Right or wrong, but at least that way everybody in a group is on the same page of accumulating GDUs on their crop. I mean, I don't know a better way, because when we're planting out here in late May, we've seen corn emerge at 80 GDUs, which that should not be. They normally say 110 GDUs to emergence. So guys up north may have to have 150, 200 GDUs to emerge, especially if you get a rainfall where the ground gets cold. So so that's the easiest thing to do, is just go from emergence and start calculating GDUs. But so there's your explanation there of how to do it. You take the daily high and the daily low, add them together, divided by 2 at 50 degrees. So let's just say you are up at 90 degrees for the high and your low is 70. So you got 40 on the high side you're going to gain, and you got 20 on the low side. So that's 60 divided by 2. So that's 30 GDUs that day. So pretty simple to do it, but I think a lot of guys don't calculate it right on it. That's why we get some issues of timing of applying stuff. But that's actually the best way that we've seen to do it that way.
Well, and I've
And
used
like,
different websites, apps, everything, and sometimes there'll be 3 of them, and they'll all have a different GDU at the end of the day. So it's like everybody's almost got to be on the same page if they're kind of following what you're doing. But so you're doing this calculation on your own, calculating it every day and writing it down.
yeah, we try to do it once a week.
Yeah.
We'll write down the highs or look back on our phone there and see the highs and lows, and and try to calculate them that way.
Be nice if we could have like I don't know, like an Excel or something that's live where, a guy's just got to type in their temperature and it would pull it up for them and record it. But that's the thing, is just something that's easy and automatic, and there's an app that tracks it all, is what we all want, because we all want the easy button. But yeah, there's just nobody that does it. I think the Hefty one is a joke. I don't think that one works very well. And seed companies have them, but they're just all different, is the struggle.
Yeah. Because
So
some companies go down to, or the minimum's 55 degrees.
Yeah.
So 50, I feel comfortable. I think the crop's still growing at 50. I like that number.
Yeah, this is one we put together a couple of years ago. I can send it out. You guys want to play with it, but you start it and it tracks it by the day that you put it in. It continues on. This is just the first page of it.
That seems simple enough.
Yeah. Did we have a question, or did we already answer that?
No, I just see it in there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I got you.
So any questions on the GDUs, guys? So here's a question. Speaking of this here, have you guys seen that the with this program that it does seem like that it don't take as many GDUs to get through the growth stages? Have you guys seen that? Anybody?
Not particularly, I guess, for me.
Okay. I mean, I just kind of compare it to our other guys in our neighborhood here that don't run it. We got a lot of different neighbors close to us, so we get to see a lot of different fields, and um, you know, even black layering at that 25-26% corn, and planting, we plant full season corn. A lot of the other guys that in our area plant 114 day. I say full season, 120 day, but there's a lot of guys in our area plant 114 day corn, same company. And it seems like our corn is black layering before theirs is. So
Wouldn't you
I'm just,
agree, like you kind of said it? I mean, that top degree number where yours is not experiencing the stress, it's still rocking and rolling, as time goes on with the nutrition that you're getting into it. So it's going to move on along faster, where those other guys, where it's not as healthy, it's stressed out, it's going to take longer for it, because it does actually shut down a little bit and it's not as productive up in them higher temperatures.
that's what I was curious. That's what I was kind of getting at.
Yeah.
We don't see really a lull too much of a, where how the crop gets, sometimes you'll see that it's at a standstill if you're going through drought or whatever. We just don't really see that too much on our farm.
Yeah, I guess now that you bring that up a little bit, this last harvest, we probably had, and there's a difference. It's going to dry out if it dies earlier. So that's a different issue. But seems like when ours was, still green and good, and we were doing high moisture corn for the feedlot, we were picking it a lot wetter than everybody else bringing it into the feedlot. And we are probably planting more longer season than most around here, which, around here, if you're planting 116, a lot of people say you have a screw loose, but we planted 2/4 of that. And we were taking it in about 2 to 3 points drier than everybody else bringing their 109, 110 in. So, but everybody's been running a kind of a liquid style. There's everything starter's been put on around here a long time, but they're all still running dries, and it's stress and whatnot. So, yeah, the more that I think about that, there is something to that. So,
Yeah. Joe, you want to talk about this one?
Well, this is just a chart I found on the internet, how you can use your GDUs to predict different insect cycles. This is just one on black cutworm, I think it is. And it tells you based on that growing degree day, approximately how it's developing through the season. So if you're scouting, or if you have a scouting service, you might have them be looking for these moths or the early laying of eggs and so forth, and then be on, get ahead of the game. I don't think too often many have, or they've not mentioned too much about insect damage or issues yet. In the conjunction with that, you can also use your GDUs on the different groups of weeds, and when they come out, when they grow, mature, and so forth. So you can be looking for that with the different GDUs early on. And that's when we see or looking for weeds, so we can knock them out. They don't want them to get very big. Same thing with herbicide applications are connected to GDUs or growing degree days. You can calculate that out, and you can probably Google up more of this information on the internet. I just happened to grab these. This has probably been a couple of years ago. I had these slides, and give you the GDUs will serve more purposes for you than you might think. And they're out there on the internet if you want to look for that to help you. And then it also has to do with the harvest date. Your GDUs would help you do that, to know when it is at different growing degree days will affect your dry down or your maturity. It takes 30 growing degree units per point to lower from 30 to 25. So those are just some examples there for you to look at. I think this one was just some info you can expect this emergence to happen at 125 in this chart. And this is going back off of that calculation that we did a while ago. And at B5, and then ear formation, silking, and then maturity. And then this is just that review that started at, well, in this case, it's March 1st, but I agree with you that we ought to start it at emergence. And then, like I said, we got the calculator. I'll send it out. If you guys want to use it, you can. If not, build your own or go to some of those sites. That's about it on GDUs. Ready to go move on?
Yeah.
Here's your pH factor that it's horrendous to think about. You throw out all that fertilizer, if you got a low pH, you're not using hardly nothing, or you don't get the benefit of it.
Yeah, that's kind of why, every time we talk at every meeting, we talk about pH, how important it is, and why, until you get that corrected, I'd rather see you spend more money on lime and that before you run this program, to a T, because it's pH don't lie. I mean, to be very efficient, we got to get our pH balanced.
Speaking of that, when we've all seen this chart, but even now more than ever that we're striving for higher yields and we're doing these liquid programs, you ought to really study this thing about what your pH level is doing to different nutrients. They're either not available or they are available. They even conflict with each other. And here's another chart just to show you. The green is optimum.
Guys, there's a good podcast from Graham Sate on nutrition farming, it's called. That his recent one, I believe, is The Power of pH. And it's a good refresher, or it's just a good learning tool to understand more about the pH and how important it is.
What's the name of it again?
Nutrition farming. The host is Graham Sate. He's an Australian.
Okay.
Grae. Oh God.
Graeme, capital SAIT.
Graham Sate. Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, it just kind of, the nutrients that we talk about go back to that one, Joe. So you sit there and you look at that, the availability of it. Phosphorus and potassium, that's why we want to try to be right at that 7. So guys that are having issues, you start getting a little bit more acidic, you're starting to miss out on nutrient uptake just because of a simple problem of the pH. Of all the things, it's pretty simple to fix. The pH is one of the easiest things to fix and growing a crop. So, and as far as dollar wise, you think about it money wise, it is the most efficient. Because you want to try to be as close to 100% on these nutrients availability as what you can. And by trying and I think a lot of guys get in trouble, they go out and say, well, yeah, we're planting at planting date, we're at a 6 pH, knowing that you're going to drop down to probably a 5.7, 5.8 throughout the season. So they say, well, we can't get enough P or K in the plant, so they go out and add more and more, and you're just compounding your problem more and more when it might be just a simple fix of raising your pH to that, try to get it around that 7 right at planting. So that's the main thing, guys. Get that pH corrected. So
When you look at manganese there at 5.5, there's such a thing as manganese toxicity. I know that in our programs, we like to push manganese. But if you're in that lower pH range, you need to be cautious of too much manganese. Along with iron and aluminum.
What about boron? Does that kind of fall in that same category, as you can kind of get that up too high too if you're in a lower area?
well, so I think truthfully that the boron gets piggybacked in with the calcium for the most part.
Okay.
So and everybody's seen the charts of nutrient relationships and this and that. They do help each other, and they actually can be a pain in the ass to each other. But look at the main nutrient that we talked about the most today was what? Calcium. And look where the best availability of calcium is. I mean, that right there ought to be enough to tell us, guys, that's the first thing we got to work on. Is getting that pH, try to be in that right around 7 to 7.1 when we were planting.
Yeah.
Was that Terry? Is he all right? Heart attack?
Yeah, I think you gave me a cold. You gave me a cold Monday.
But it's neat to come back and look at these charts every once in a while. To see, there's a reason why we try to be at that, why we try to plant at 7.1, and we know naturally it's going to get about tassel. We'll be in that 6.7, 6.8 range. And you look, about the availability, most of them were in the green other than iron and moly. that's kind of the happy medium, so nutrient balance becomes a lot easier when you start out with pH where it needs to be at.
When you correlate that with Mulder's chart of what antagonizes another, especially when you look at it from a pH perspective, it adds to the story.
Yeah.
For sure. Now, while we're on that subject, this is we know that many of those nutrients are either mobile or immobile in a plant. Here's one in the soil, but in the plant, your mobile nutrients will begin to show up in the oldest leaves. I'm sorry, in the my chart got whacked around. It'll show up in the newest leaves, and your immobile is what's going to show up in the oldest leaves.
Going back to your 2x2 conversation versus, using a 2x2 versus dribbling, if you look at the mobility in the soil of some of the nutrients that are in the Y drop, like zinc, phosphorus, sometimes copper.
Yep. True.
Yeah.
And then if you're out looking in the field, these are the things you can look for that it shows up, where it shows up. Older growth, new growth.
Carbon dioxide is an interesting one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen that before.
That Joe's on the ball.
And some of these nutrients are hard to tell when you're out in the field. Your magnesium deficiencies, even manganese and zinc and sulfur are somewhat similar, but they do have characteristics that can help you distinguish them apart. And now you got your smartphone, so all you got to do is Google it up on your smartphone while you're out there in the field and look up at a picture of it. Then here's the relationship of nutrient elements to plant functions. And this is out of Huber and Purdue University. This guy, I guess this is the name of the guy. Or both of them are. I think that was, what's his name? Huber.
Don Huber.
Yeah. So those are interesting to see all the nutrients that goes into each of those metabolisms.
Joe, on that photosynthesis thing, when I'm talking with growers, I'm using the example of a lot of these nutrients that goes into photosynthesis. And to make a long story short, like when we're recommending nutrients, it's not to get another dollar out of the farmer's pocket. It's to help in this whole function of the plant, especially photosynthesis is very important.
Yeah, I mean, even playing into this, all these nutrients, if we can get those balanced out in the plant, and this is one of the reasons that Kevin tells you to tissue sample all the time, is then you're going to increase your whole efficiency of that system that's working in the corn plant or the soybean plant to give you the maximum yield potential that you're after. So yeah, they all play a role. Let's see. Don't forget about this chemical sequence. All starts with the boron, then silica and calcium. There's your main puppies. And most people have silica in their soil. Doesn't take a lot.
Yeah, we'll talk about silica a little bit. Trying to think, 6-7 years ago, we played with, for 2 years we tried it. And all I know is we seen zero yield gain by adding it, and it completely plugged up our sprayer. We had had our Haggy, we had 1,400 gallons of snot
Yeah.
in it. Um, so everything we're growing now has nothing that we put any silica in, or silica products from companies to gain any yield with it. So the silica thing for our farm was a bust for us.
And you're right. We have played with silica too. And if you want a squeezy toy, you can mix silica with nitrogen and instantly have that gigantic ball of snot. It just does not play well at all with nitrogen. So you cannot put silica. Probably if you were going to apply silica, almost would have to be separately by itself. And it does not take hardly any nitrogen to react with that silica to make that snot. And again, back to everything we've been talking about this morning, it's all comes down to the rhizosphere and the exudates that comes out of the roots and the symbiotic relationship with the soil biology. But I mean, really, that's what grows all crops. And it depends on how well you do it as to the yield you're going to come out with. But yeah, what makes the world go round.
Dr. White, James White on YouTube, you can YouTube this. He has a really good video on the rhizophagy cycle and how nutrients are taken in through bacteria and to some extent some fungi through the root tip. It's an amazing educational video, the importance of the biology in the soil and how biology, I mean, until I saw that, I believe that, it got, nutrients got into the plant through a ionic form, once the bacteria break it down. But plants actually take in bacteria that has different nutrients in their bodies. And once it's in that root system, the plant does something to the wall of that bacteria that more or less gets rid of the cell wall and releases that nutrient into the plant right there in the root, right there in the root, and then it gets translocated into the plant. It's awesome. If you guys got it, an hour free to Google that and just watch that.
Yeah, them root exudes are really sweet if you ever are curious. I mean, I don't know if the word's curious or not, but it's actually kind of a sweet taste that them roots put out. Kind of neat. Kind of neat on them.
Sugars, and that's what stimulates the biology. And back to what Craig was saying, I mean, it is absolutely miraculous how crops grow to be what they are because so much happens in that rhizosphere right there next to the root, not necessarily in your whole acre that's out there in the field, because everything is happening right in that rhizosphere next to that root. So exchange of nutrients, biology, I mean, golly, that's everything going on right there to grow the kind of crops that we grow. So we want to chat about fungicides.
Yeah, Kevin, why don't you talk about fungicide a little bit? We'll break for lunch.
So I know Poe Monday was talking about maybe doing a trial again at V5 application. But we may do some strips. We used to do it. We kind of got away from it. But hybrids have changed. We might see a little bump in it again. But for us, we are changing our application on our first fungicide. If you guys remember, we had some arrested ear issues in one field last year. And we think that it was a double hit whammy where we applied it on that V10 application. We thought it was V10, but that's where we ran the Phycoterra, and the plant was actually older than what we thought. Um, and then 2 days later, we had a cold front come through where we dropped in temperature. So we had two pretty significant changes in ethylene production in the plant, dropped significantly, and it was too fast at that time. We were forming ear length, and and it was pretty consistent. It was about we had about four rows going down from the above the ear that looked like a regular ear, and then the rest of them looked like little baby ears, kind of looked like Terry's corn, little bitty. I mean, ears
Yeah.
weren't that long.
Yeah.
But so what we're going to do, if I'm going to apply early, I'm going to apply at V8. And the reason at V8, we still have that ear leaf out. It's not fully collared, but it will actually probably be at V8 the top leaf on the plant. So we'll still get good coverage on that, and on the timing that if something happens where we can't get in there and we're actually getting into that V10 V11 stage, I will not apply fungicides after seeing that rested ear. We will wait till tassel to apply our fungicides. So a little different philosophy, just because of the rested ear. I know it was a freak of nature that happened, but if it happens once, don't mean it can't happen again. So we are changing the timing on our first application a little bit because of that. Choice, I still like Veltima, even though we're switching, and that's just because I'm pissed off at BASF that they wouldn't stand for that one little field that we had. So we are going probably on our first shot fungicides. We will be using the Delero, and then we'll be coming back on the second and third shots with Delero Complete. Part of the reason is that we're switching it is we use the Bayer rewards, so that's kind of influencing us as a farmer to go with Delero, just to get a little bit more rebate back. Now, we did use Maravis a little bit. It was okay. I have no problems with it. It's been a long time since I've used Triva Pro. It was good then, but that's in a nutshell kind of the way and the reasoning why we're switching fungicides this year for our farm. And it probably ain't a bad thing. We've been using, the same fungicide for a long time, or ever since it's been out, and just been basically running either Veltima or what's their other one? Their older one. What's their older one? Fungicide. BSF. Headline. We've been using that chemistry for a long time, so it probably wouldn't hurt giving a break just to get a different chemistry, different rates out there, just so we don't build up a immunity to it. Because it is a disease. You can, I mean, my opinion is you can build up a immune. The bug or fungus can. So that's probably not a bad idea to switch them up every once in a while. Anybody want to talk about Xyway? We don't use it. Everybody knows my reasoning for it. But the bigger guys that run over a bunch of acres, if you have an issue with seedling blight or dampening off or something like that, I can understand using it. It would pay for it, help. But in our area, the guys that use it, the first year it was sold to be to last all year, and gray leaf spot come in, and southern rust, and just destroyed it after tassel. So now they use it up front, and then they come back with another fungicide, a foliar fungicide around tassel, and they seem to be pretty happy with it. I don't know. Trying to think of anything else.
What are you gonna do on beans?
The beans will probably stay with Revitech. And then we'll probably run on the first pass, because we will run try to an R1 pass and then come back at R5 on the soybeans. I do believe the two shots, not only the two shots of fungicides on the soybeans helps, but we can get our insecticide out there both times. Japanese beetles and stink bugs, take care of them. But the second pass, the R5, would probably be with like a generic quilt or something like that, with no strobies in it. That's part of the reason why, you get tough beans. We apply that strobie late, and you got big healthy stem, and just it don't die off. It just becomes a pain in the ass. I'm not really at that time on that R5. I'm not, my plant is healthy enough as far as the strobie part. I'm not really after that. I'm just more after contact kill of whatever fungicides out there, or funguses or disease that's out there right then. So that's kind of our philosophy on what we're going to do, in a nutshell. What are you guys going to use? There's several different options. But I mean, part of the reason I like to use a good fungicide first is, to try to get as much coverage and as long, and I run full rate on it, to try to get as long as protection as we can. Like I said, just come back with a cheap rate late, or a cheap fungicide late, just to finish off anything that's growing, for that last month of bean fill, pod fill.
I've got a question. So I don't know, this kind of maybe a little unrelated, but when you were talking about insecticides and bugs, you made me think of it. Sometimes I think this program on our farm has almost attracted more of the bugs with all the, and you got really healthy plants, because last year I had just things just amped up and cranking, and I got just hammered with them stupid stink bugs and then Japanese beetles. Do you think that we create so much extra juices in this stuff that it attracts the bugs?
Well, I'm not saying it don't attract, but a healthy plant should,
Taste
one, have its own defense a little bit by itself, a healthier plant.
sure.
But two, if I'm not saying that the sugar is 100% fantastic. I mean, we do use it as an insecticide, but like when we spray our fungicides, there's always a sugar pass with it. That should help knock your Japanese beetles down and your stink bugs down. The sugar should. So, I've seen, when I see more bugs out in our field, it's normally because more aphids I see. But as far as Japs and the stink bugs, I can't say that we have more or less. I mean, truthfully, I'd say we have less than what our neighbors do. But I spray twice on our beans, where they're only sometimes spraying one time. So I can't really say yes or no if I see that. But we're just we're a little bit more proactive of spraying actual insecticide too, on that. I don't know. Does anybody else notice that on their farm? More bugs?
So Ethan, if you want to, I don't know if you have one or not, but you ought to purchase a refractometer.
Okay.
All right, so you'll go out at any point in time. You can do it before the insects arrive, or if they do arrive, go out and you take some samples of leaves, and you probably need to buy a vice grip to squeeze the juice out of the leaf. And it drops, you put a drop or two on your refractometer, and that measures Brix levels. So
Okay,
that's the content of the sugar in the plant. The lower the sugar content, let's say it's 4 or 3, 4 or 5 or something like that, that's going to attract insects, because for some reason the plant will send out a signal or a frequency that it is low in sugar. It's sick, actually. And if you
Okay.
can get it up around 10 or even 12, number one, if you go past 12, you won't have hardly any insects. You won't have hardly any diseases, because the plant is so healthy, it fights off all this stuff due to the sugar content. So what he's saying is, if you do apply more sugar, that can help, let's say even prior to an insect outbreak, to raise that level in that plant. But if you'll take that reading several times through the season, you will show yourself a chart. Like, okay, early on was my plant at 8 or 10. And then as it grew at V5 or 6, is it now down to 4? Well, you probably ought to give it a shot or a sugar, or even more applied it per time.
okay. Yeah, thanks.
But knowing them refractometers can change readings per hour.
Sure, okay. But it'll at least give you a ballpark.
Yeah,
Right.
that's all.
But you probably need to play with it and see what kind of ranges you're running. You know, if you're going past the crop once every hour or so, you might just see what kind of readings you're getting differently.
Sure,
And that
okay.
probably also back up our whole theory about early in the morning. I bet you have a higher sugar. As the hot sun hits it later in the middle of the day, you'll have probably less because it's under stress. And then late in the afternoon, it may go back up. So I would be curious to see.
Okay,
And the types of sugar that's formed is a big draw or anti-draw for insects also. What Joe was talking about in that lower percentage on a Brix, those are more simple sugars that bugs can digest because of their systems. But when you get into the more complex sugars, they won't chew it or they won't suck it because their bodies cannot metabolize that form of sugar, complex form of sugar. And also nitrates, high nitrate levels in a plant can attract certain insects also.
Yep, true.
yep.
What do you think? Break for lunch?
It'd be good with me.
Okay. Let's break for lunch for 30, 40 minutes, and you will leave it on, Joe, if you guys want to talk.
Yeah, I'll stop it and start it again.
Yeah, that'd be good. All right, we'll see you guys in 30, 40 minutes.